Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm your host, Corey Graham. Join us here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where the independent new authors come first. We're going to be talking about a book right now that's a story of a curious dog who decides to set off on an adventure to explore her new city. It's titled Brisa's Day Out, Denver, Colorado. This is written by Brooke Stadler. We're going to be talking all about it. Brooke is here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Brooke, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here with me tonight.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to let everybody know about my book.
I'm excited to learn all about it. So can you tell me what readers are in store for?
Well, the book is about my own personal dogs. It is the adventures that she goes on when I leave for work.
So how did the idea come about for this? What sparked you to do it?
Honestly, it was, like I said, it's based off of my own dogs, Sadie and Brisa. And when I would leave for work, I would always wonder what they were doing. And so it kind of started this storytelling adventure within my classroom when I was teaching in the classroom. And it eventually turned into a book.
What kind of a readership did you have in mind?
Honestly, because I spent so much time in the primary grades in the classroom, mostly first through third grade, it was really geared towards those grade levels to provide a kind of geography, social studies type of series that kids could read because there's not a whole lot in those grade levels for kids to read.
So what does your writing background look like, Brooke? Have you done this kind of thing before?
I have not. I have been a teacher for 18 years. And so I've just been in the classroom and I've worked with hundreds of students. And so I kind of can see what their strengths are, what the weaknesses are, what really is that need for in the classroom. And so that was really what kind of geared me, or I guess prompted me to finally write down some of the stories.
So once you got started on it, clear up through when it was published and out there for everybody, was this a long journey that you were on?
It was not. It actually took me about a week to write it in its entirety. I had, like I said, I'd had it in my head for so long and had told so many different stories about Sadie and Brisa, and I had so many people pestering me that I needed to write it down. And so I finally did. And yeah, this is what came out of it.
Well, a really important aspect of books like this is the illustrations. How tricky was that? Was that an easy process?
You know what? I did not do the illustrations. My book publisher had a series of, or a set of selections that I could choose from, but it was a lot of pressure because I do want multiple series with Brisa and her adventures. And so the first book and the first illustrations, it was a lot because I had to get it right because you can't change it in the middle,
right?
Because then it wouldn't be Brisa. So that was really, honestly, the only pressure that I really felt during the whole process.
Well, a lot of our listeners right now are authors who are just starting out as well. So, Brooke, is there something maybe you learned along the way that you could throw out there as some advice for them?
I think that, honestly, just chase that adventure that you have. This has been a grand adventure that I've had for years, and I never really stopped chasing it. At times, I didn't know how to chase it, but then at that moment in time, that was just perfect. It's like it all came together. So I would say just chase your adventures.
Well, of all the authors I've talked with, I've noticed something, and that's that a lot of them really love to read as well. So, Brooke, are you an avid reader?
I definitely am.
Well, what a wonderful book this is. Again, the title is Brisa's Day Out, Denver, Colorado. It's written by Brooke Stadler, published by Covenant Books, and really available just about everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Brooke, it's been really great talking with you tonight, learning all about Brisa's Day Out. Thanks again.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
I'm sitting here right now with author George K. Ata-Baah. George, welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Congratulations on having a new book out there, George. It's titled Glory Beyond the Horizon, Dare to Dream. So, George, can you tell me all about it?
Yeah, I think most people, when we were all little, we had dreams and visions. Some of us thought we could become an astronaut or probably a pilot or a doctor or a lawyer. But with the passage of time, people actually abandon their dreams. So this book is to inspire people to unleash their untapped potential and also to propel them to step out of their comfort zone to pursue their dreams and visions and goals.
George, did you have certain readers in mind when you were doing this?
Yes, I think basically I was targeting everybody who can lay his hands on this. And of course, with a background as a minister, missionary, a pastor, and a chaplain, and also a life insurance producer, I have multiple audience. And talking to many people, I realized that many people have dreams. So anybody who wants to pursue his or her dream, this is my target audience or readers.
So how did this all come about, George? What inspired you to start it?
I guess what inspired me to also dare to dream and to make this vision a reality was that many years ago, I had a conversation with one of my mentors, and he said, George, if you are afraid to lose sight of the shore, you would never discover new horizons. As a matter of fact, that set me thinking that, hey, I have to be bold. I have to be courageous. I have to look up there even if I don't see anything. And so that is what actually set me thinking that when the opportunity comes, I'm going to put this into writing.
So have you done this kind of thing before, or is this all new ground for you, George?
I think this is the second one. The first one I published was called Show Me Your Glory, Developing Intimacy with God. But that didn't go far. It was just a little book. I didn't also have editors and professionals to walk me through. So I would say this is one good book that I had people to read through and also edit for the final print.
So with Glory Beyond the Horizon, when you wrote it, put it through the publishing process, was this a long journey that you were on?
Oh, yes, a long journey. I would say probably I started writing this book 2010.
Wow.
I wrote a little bit and then I put it down. I was also inspired by the medical assembly plants here in Minnesota. I had the opportunity to work with some of them and just fascinated about little insignificant idea that has become a very important medical device also inspired me. So I started all the way 2010. And by 2000 and probably 14, 15, I was almost done. And then I wanted people to read and so that it will catch a wider audience. So the editing went through many friends and people. And then, of course, because of finances, I couldn't publish it early. So this book has taken me almost 14 years.
And it must have been a special moment when you got your first copy and you're actually holding it in your hands for the first time, George. What was that like?
Oh, yes. I couldn't believe the publishing house did a very good job by designing the book cover. And the first time I held the book in my hands, I said, wow, the dream has become a reality. It's no longer a vision, it's a reality. I felt very happy about it.
Well, George, you've been published. You have a couple books out now. What's the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
Yeah, the most rewarding aspect for me is having a dream and making sure that the dream has materialized, because many people have great dreams and aspirations, but not until you dare to dream, it will always be a dream. But having the book in my hands is a testament that, hey, I saw nothing beyond the horizon, but there was something which has been crafted and become a reality.
Again, the title is Glory Beyond the Horizon, Dare to Dream. This is written by George K. Ata-Baah and published by Christian Faith Publishing. So find it at places like Amazon and Barnes & Noble, iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores.
George, it's been really great talking with you tonight and learning all about Glory Beyond the Horizon. Thanks again for talking with me.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
I'm looking at the new book by author Leah Finklea. It's a children's tale blending music and nature. The title of the book is The Music of the Ocean, Once Again. Leah is here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, and we get to talk all about this book. Leah, welcome. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Leah, can you tell me all about The Music of the Ocean once again and what readers are going to find here?
Yes, well, this book is about a little girl who is going to the beach, and she's so excited because her favorite part is the waves. And it just blends a beach story with an opportunity to teach children music theory. So she compares the waves to different musical terms all throughout the book.
I love it. How'd you get the idea for this? How'd this come about?
Well, I am a music teacher, so I'm always trying to find ways to teach these different, dynamics and notes and terms to children and specifically preschoolers. And the time that I actually wrote this book, I just happened to be going to the beach that day, and I just felt this urge to write. So it just kind of happened, but it's because I really want to make materials and resources for, children to learn music. So it kind of just started there.
So how young of children would you say that this is suited for?
I'd say, honestly, as young as, I teach as young as 2, so I like to challenge my classes, and it's really about exposure. So even if all of the students don't completely understand a word, it's definitely fun to just get them to say it. You're learning how to say the word, and I'm doing actions with the word, and especially if you're relating it to something like water and the ocean and waves, things that they do understand or have seen or experienced in some way. It just makes it more fun, and then it makes learning easier as they are progressing, and little kids can learn hard things. So I like the challenge.
So is this all new to you, or do you have experience in the whole writing and publishing thing?
No, this is definitely new. This is my first book. I used to write when I was younger. I enjoyed it, but it's different to actually do it and then see it, in your hand.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is new, definitely.
Wow, congratulations. So being that this was new for you, was this a long journey from beginning to end?
Actually, not really. It took about a year and a half because it was a different feeling that day. It just felt like, okay, you need to write today. I didn't know exactly what I was going to write. And then once I got to the beach, and because I was there with my friends, and they kind of just fell asleep at the beach, and I was just writing, it was like once I got into it, it just kind of knew like, okay, I'm supposed to do this. This is supposed to be a book. So as soon as that, day was over, I wrote the whole thing at the beach. And then after that, I just started looking and kind of researching publishers and just kind of how to start the process, because I knew like I had to get it going. Like I knew God definitely gave me this idea, so I got to move forward with it and not just let it sit there, So It just started coming together as I started talking to, Christian Faith Publishing. And then like I started looking for illustrators, and like I found the way I looked or I saw it in my head, there was this one illustrator that she just drew exactly what I saw. And I was like, okay, this is it. So it just came together.
So yeah, you get the manuscript done, and like you said, you started working with Christian Faith on the publishing, and there's a lot involved there. So we talked about the illustrations, and that seemed to go pretty well. Was there anything else about the publishing end of things that you found challenging?
I think it's just the waiting. It's probably the hardest part.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't challenging. Like it was very helpful to work with them because I'm also like a full-time entrepreneur. So it took some of the weight off, just knowing I could submit it and it's getting, put together and formed, by someone else. And so I think it's just the kind of waiting and, how long is it going to take? When is it going to be done? When can I see it? Other than that, it was a good process.
Well, this is wonderful. I love the message, and I think people are really going to enjoy this. Again, the title is The Music of the Ocean, Once Again. This is written by Leah Finklea and published by Christian Faith Publishing, so you can find it everywhere, places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Leah, it's been so wonderful talking with you and learning all about this book. Thanks again for coming on the show with me.
Thank you for having me.
The audiobook edition of the book by Edward Dumke. It's titled The Serpent Beguiled Me and I Ate, A Heavenly Diet for Saints and Sinners. Well, this audiobook just came out. Edward is joining me here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We get to talk all about it. Edward, welcome. I appreciate you joining me here tonight.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Edward, I'm interested in The Serpent Beguiled Me and I Ate. Can you tell me all about the book?
Well, it's really a diet book. And I kind of grew up having somewhat of a weight problem because I came from a family that loved to eat. My mother was a great cook. My father loved to cook. My grandparents and so forth. And I'm an Episcopal minister. I'm a retired Episcopal minister. And it kind of occurred to me one time after thinking about it that the first person to go off the diet was Eve when she ate the apple. And so nothing's been the same since, you know. And then I thought, well, I got to thinking about how food was used in the Bible. And, of course, if you're Jewish or Christian, you're kind of in the eating religion. You know, they have the Passover meal to celebrate the liberation from the Jewish people from Egypt. They were brought into a land flowing with milk and honey. If you're a Christian, you have the Last Supper, which is a symbol of our salvation. So our fall came in eating, and our salvation came from eating or celebrating eating.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, so I thought, really, food is kind of a psycho-religious symbol. That's what I'm thinking of in the book. And what I'm trying to say in the book is understand how food is used in your life. Food is used to celebrate community, to show love, to do covenants. You do, the average business lunch and so forth that people have. So you really need to understand how food is used in your life and what it symbolizes. So that's why I wrote the book. But what I'm really saying is you need to take control of your own diet and make up your own diet that fits your particular relationship with food.
Very interesting. So who would you say your reading audience was? Who were you thinking of when you were writing this, Edward?
Well, just anybody who maybe has a weight problem. You know, and I also know that a lot of my friends have, fought with a weight problem, and they've tried all kinds of different diets, but the diet is not necessarily one that really fits their personal lifestyle. So what I'm trying to do is give people that, have a weight problem or just interested in food and why we eat as a way to come up with their own particular diet. And the book has all kinds of suggestions on how one might do that, but one diet doesn't work for everybody. You have to kind of make up your own. So what I'm really saying is you have to take creative control of your diet. And there's ways to do that. You can keep a journal. You can count calories. You can do a daily weigh-in or maybe not do it, 1 week weigh-in. There's a whole chapter on the ethical etiquette on how to handle the holidays or how to handle a grandmother who spent her whole day baking your favorite pie and you're on a diet. Do you eat the pie or how do you handle that situation? You don't want to reject her. You don't want to reject her love. So there's maybe a way to do that. It's really letting people develop their own plan. Become a co-creator.
So, Edward, what does your writing background look like? Have you ever done anything like this before?
No, I've written a lot of sermons. I'm a 78-year-old retired Episcopal minister, so I've written a lot of sermons and articles. I also wrote a book, which is completely different, a novel called Family Secrets, a San Francisco saga, which is a story based in 1953 San Francisco, which is kind of a murder mystery, and it's a romance murder mystery, but it looks at what San Francisco was like in the 50s. There's drug smuggling, and anyway, but that's also available on Amazon along with The Serpent. But I enjoy writing, and it's kind of something I do.
Of course, we're talking about the audiobook edition of The Serpent Beguiled Me. Edward, the whole time you're working on this, you're used to seeing the words on the page. Now, with the audiobook, you're hearing your own book read back to you. What's that like for you?
I was really surprised how well they did it. I mean, because, the book is also available in paperback, but they did a great job. I was very pleased with how they read it.
Again, it's titled The Serpent Beguiled Me and I Ate, A Heavenly Diet for Saints and Sinners. This is written by Edward Dumke and published by the Audiobook Network. So really, if you go to where you normally get your audiobooks, you'll be able to find this, like Audible, iTunes, and Amazon. Well, Edward, it's been really fantastic talking with you tonight and learning all about this book. Thanks again for talking.
Well, thank you. And you just have to know how to say no to a Greek grandmother.
The audiobook edition of the new book written by Reverend Dr. Beryl Dennis, titled Caring for the Spirit of the Family Caregiver, 40 Days of Reflections to Strengthen and Encourage. Well, this audiobook just came out, and Beryl is right here with me. We get to talk all about it. Beryl, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
I'm excited to learn all about caring for the spirit of the family caregiver. Beryl, can you tell me what readers are going to find here?
What readers are going to find are words of encouragement for their journey. It's different for every caregiver, but I think that whatever you go through, it is often unexpected because you often become a caregiver as the need arises. And so it's helpful, at least I found that it was really helpful, to find encouragement through the Word of God, the Bible. And what I've done in this book is to basically compile various topics that are what caregivers often go through, and then address those topics biblically. And I include in each devotion words from other caregivers that I've interviewed to encourage, because one of the questions I asked was, what would you want other caregivers to know? So this book includes scripture, it includes words of encouragement from other caregivers, and then reflections and prayers.
How long of a process was this for you, Beryl, writing and publishing, everything?
I was working on this for a couple of years while I was taking care of my mother. And what really inspired it is her, because she was always concerned about me. She says, she would often ask me what I was doing to care for myself because she knew that I was putting a lot of time into caring for her. And I think she also was very attuned to the emotional and the spiritual toll and the physical toll that it takes upon a person caring for someone that they love. And that's when I began to think, when I was working on my dissertation, that I ought to focus on what she was concerned about and examine caring for the spirit of other family caregivers and learn from other caregivers what their experience has been and how they have come through and what types of spiritual encouragement have worked for them.
So, Beryl, when it comes to writing, publishing, that whole thing, is this something that's new for you, or do you have experience in it?
No, this is the first book I have authored. As a minister of the gospel, I have preached and prepared sermons, but I had not constructed a book this way where the research is done to really hear what previous researchers have found, as well as getting firsthand accounts of other individuals' experiences. So this is definitely something that was new for me.
So over the entire course of this journey for you, writing it, then putting it through the publishing process, Beryl, what did you find the most challenging part of it for you?
I think the most challenging part was writing the introduction, because in the introduction, I reflected upon how this all began. And so it was a very emotional experience to revisit that in my heart and in my mind, and to be able to express it in a way that others would also be able to find some part of my experience that they related to.
I'm looking at it right now. The cover's beautiful. How did that all come together? Was that an easy process?
It's an image of an olive tree, and it represents what caregiving is all about. First of all, caregiving needs to be rooted, whether you're rooted in your family, in your love, in God, because you do need a firm foundation from which to operate. And then the reason why the branches are significant is because caregiving involves so many different aspects of taking care of another person. You end up branching into so many different areas, and I thought that the olive tree really represented what the caregiving experience has been for me, and I assumed also for other caregivers.
Again, it's titled Caring for the Spirit of the Family Caregiver, 40 Days of Reflections to Strengthen and Encourage. It's written by Reverend Dr. Beryl Dennis, published by the Audiobook Network. So go to places like Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. You'll be able to find it. Beryl, it's been great talking with you tonight. Thanks again for coming on the show with me.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it, and I enjoyed talking with you.
I'm looking at a book right now that's a guide to understanding foundational Christian principles. It's titled Statement of Faith, The Basics of the Bible. This book is co-written by Larry R.W. Bostic, Jr. and Cristy D. Bostic. Larry is right here with me now, and we're going to talk all about the book. Larry, welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. I really appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time to be with me.
I appreciate you being here. Larry, can you tell me all about Statement of Faith and what readers are going to be getting into here?
Sure. We start off with explaining about the Bible, which is clearly the inerrant Word of God. The Bible tells us who Jesus was and is and how we are to live and understand the need for and the only way to salvation. We start off with an explanation of salvation, why it is necessary and how it is attained. We discuss many of the things that your pastor wants you to do, why and how it is part of following the Bible and Jesus Christ. We talk about baptism, who is the Holy Spirit, why we should pray, tithe, go to church, and guard your heart. Is there a hell? And if there is, will God send you there? We research these questions strictly by what the Bible says and even a little bit of science mixed in, and then wrote it so it's easy to understand and is based off the Word of God. We don't want our friends and family to have any excuse for first not knowing the answers to these questions, and second, to never have an excuse for knowing what God expects. So I think that's a basic understanding of the synopsis of it.
Larry, what sort of readers did you have in mind when you were doing this?
Well, we targeted the way it's written that even a teen could read and understand it and would also be very informative for young adults, where we believe that many teens are interested in understanding life after death, and this helps them understand biblically. Although we use this book to witness to teenagers on how to be saved and what you should do after you get saved, it is really targeting even more a mature reader that has never sought out learning about God until now. The title tells exactly what we intended. It is the basics of the Bible, but also gives you the foundation for your beliefs, or in our words, your statement of your faith. You may not agree with everything in the book, but if you don't, I would encourage you to research your different opinions and back it with biblical principles.
So, Larry, how did Statement of Faith come about? How were you inspired to get started?
We originally were asked by a neighbor, and the neighbor asked us what a Baptist church believes, because that's what we intended to write it towards, and that's where we attended a Baptist church. So we reached our understanding of the Bible and applied all of our concepts to the circumstances, or maybe better said, life experiences, and determined how we should have acted and what we should have shared with others and what kind of person God wanted us to be. And we were able to start writing that book, or at the time it was just more some notes on what we could hand to a neighbor. And then 2 years later, we left Pennsylvania and we just continued to work on the manuscript with the intent of someday, hopefully, turning it into a book.
Larry, do you have experience in this kind of thing, or is this kind of new ground for you?
Well, I do have some experience. I originally was born and raised in a Christian church. I decided that I wanted to be a youth pastor. However, what ended up happening was much different. I joined the military so I could go back and finish my college degree and be a youth pastor, but I ended up leading into a law enforcement path. And so I still wanted to continue to have the opportunity to work with youth. So I worked as an assistant youth pastor at a church. I continued on to work with youth and being a trustee and a deacon in different churches. I went back to Liberty University and I was able to finish my degree in interdisciplinary studies, but it included a significant amount of schooling and classes in theology as well as the Bible itself.
Again, the title is Statement of Faith, The Basics of the Bible. This is co-written by Larry R.W. Bostic, Jr. and Cristy D. Bostic, and it's published by Christian Faith Publishing, so find it pretty much everywhere, like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Larry, it's been really great talking with you tonight and learning all about Statement of Faith and everything you got going on. Thanks again for talking with me.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you very much.
I'm I'm looking at a collection of poetry designed to offer comfort and inspiration to readers from all walks of life. The name of the book is Faith for the Journey, and it's written by Julianna Scott. And Julianna is right here with me, and we're going to talk all about it. Julianna, welcome. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
No, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Can you tell me all about Faith for the Journey, Julianna, and what readers can find here?
Well, as you said, it's a collection of Christian inspirational poetry, and I like to think of it as sort of a handbook for life.
And what sorts of readers did you have in mind for it, do you think?
Well, anyone who in life needs inspiration, consolation, encouragement, or comfort. The title is just as it sounds, a source of renewed faith or encouragement in this journey of life.
So what sparked you to do this, Julianna? How did this come about?
Well, I was recovering from a stroke, very bad stroke, and I kept being awakened in the middle of the night by phrases running through my head, and they rhymed. And I started keeping a pad of paper and a pencil beside my bed, and I would just write this stuff down. And then in the morning, mostly I wouldn't remember ever having written it. And I started thinking that it might be divine inspiration from God, and maybe I was meant to write a book.
So this is the first time you've been published then?
Yes.
Wow, congratulations. So once you got started collecting the poetry and putting this all together in your manuscript, was this a long journey that you were on from beginning to end?
Yes, it was. It actually took a period of years, but that was good because it evolved through different stages of my life experiences and gave me more to write about.
So once you had your manuscript and you hooked up with Covenant Books to start that publishing process, Julianna, what did you find the most challenging part of that publishing end?
The waiting. I was so excited. I wanted to hold that first copy of my book in my hands.
So what was it like when you finally got to hold it?
Well, I had a feeling of finality, that the work was finally going to be out there for everyone to see and read, and that all the difficulties in my life have been worth it just to be able to share the solution of prayer with other people. And hopefully that other people would accept Christ as their personal Lord and Savior because of my book.
And now that you've been published, Julianna, what's the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
Well, I'd say just the fact that it's out there. It's no longer sitting on scraps of paper in my home. And people from, like you said, all walks of life can pick it up and read it. And I've had so many people tell me that they got great comfort from it and that it just seemed to flow and it gave them great encouragement. And that helped me quite a bit.
So looking ahead, do you see yourself maybe writing and publishing more?
Yes, I'm about halfway through another book.
Is that going to be a follow-up of sorts to Faith for the Journey, or are you exploring some other things?
There will be some Christian inspirational poetry in it, but there will also be other types of poetry and other subjects to be covered, some experiences in my life that I'd like to share with other people and just kind of branch out a bit.
Well, a lot of our listeners right now are authors who are also just starting out in all of this, so is there anything maybe you might have picked up along the way of doing this, Julianna, that you could offer as some advice for them?
Well, I'd say just be persistent and devoted to your book and think about the end product, the end realization that your book is actually out there and being publicized.
Well, I know this book is going to be a blessing and comfort to so many readers. Again, it's titled Faith for the Journey. It's written by Julianna Scott and published by Covenant Books. So find it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. It has been so nice, Julianna, talking with you tonight and learning all about Faith for the Journey. Thanks again.
Well, thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
I'm holding a book right now, and it's a story of a young boy who is whisked into a mystical realm. It's written by Scott Linney and titled The Tales of Primworth, Time War. And Scott is here with me now, and we get to talk all about this. Scott, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Scott, can you tell me all about what readers are in store for with The Tales of Primworth, Time War?
Well, it's a really exciting fantasy novel. It's a young adult fantasy novel, and it kind of has elements of maybe X-Men or the Avengers versus the bad guys. We've talked about beings from another planet or another universe that have gifts and abilities normal humans don't have. And this mortal kid from southern United States is whisked to this land where he has to battle against these evil beings along with his allies, the natives of Primworth.
Scott, what sorts of readers do you think would be really into this?
This book is targeted for teenagers. They call it the tween market, Tween, teenagers and young adults. It's been marketed as a children's book, but I left the children's book space some time ago, and this book is marketed for a much older reader. There's no pictures in here to look at. It is a read, and it's got some words that can be pretty testy for very, very young readers as far as pronunciation and what they mean. But it's basically a young adult fantasy novel that people that are interested in escapism and things like that, fantasy, they should enjoy it immensely.
So how did this all come about, Scott? What inspired you to start on it?
I left the children's book space to write a book for a much older audience. I began writing books in general to fund my son's college education. Well, my son went to college one semester and didn't finish, but I enjoyed the writing, so I kept on writing. So I published an entire 5-part children's book series, and when I finished that series about a year ago, I wanted to migrate into an older audience. So I came up with this concept for Primworth and worked on it for several months until its completion.
And once you handed the manuscript off to the publisher, you started that whole process. What was the most challenging part of that for you?
Once it's handed off to the publisher, there's a series of proofing that has to be done, and then aside from the proofing, there's a bunch of approvals. The cover art has to be approved. The interior layout of the book has to be approved. Then on the back end, when all that's done, the marketing plan has to be approved. The publisher really takes a lot of the load off of you, but you have a hands-on part in the process. You're hands-on, you're involved, you're committed, you got a stake in it. But I think really the most challenging part is attention to detail. There are certain things as me as the author, the book stopped with me. I either like this or I don't, go with this or I want it changed. That can be challenging, especially if you can't make decisions. You're indecisive.
So you wrote a children's series before this. Scott, do you have plans to turn Tales of Primworth into a series as well?
This one ends with a cliffhanger. There could be a part 2. I don't think it'll be a multi-series like, say, Harry Potter or anything like that. I don't think it'll go 5 or 6 volumes, 5 or 6 different episodes, but there definitely is room for a part 2. If the book's well-received and sells enough copies, absolutely.
A lot of our listeners are authors just starting out. Scott, do you have any advice that you could throw out there for them?
Yeah. Writing is a perseverance game. You got to just stick with it. There's days when you get writer's block. There's days when you just may not feel like it, but especially if you're working with a traditional publishing house and you have deadlines imposed on you, you've got to get it done. Now, I think my preparation, my academic preparation has helped me a lot. I've had a lot of grad school training. I do a lot of writing. I've done a lot of writing, and I published a dissertation. So writing comes very easily to me, and I think I have a very strong creative aspect. I like to tap into the creative side of my brain. So it comes really easy to me as far as the writing. And if you don't like to write, you may struggle there. But it's a perseverance game. You just got to stick with it. And then getting signed, getting your book published, there's a whole different ball of wax there. There's different avenues and routes you can go there. And I chose a different route this time. But it's grit and determination to see it through and get it done. And I think you'll feel a sense of pride and reward when you do.
That's great advice. Well, this sounds like a book a lot of readers are really going to love. Again, it's titled The Tales of Primworth, Time War. It's written by Scott Linney, published by Newman Springs Publishing, and really available everywhere. So check it out at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Now, Scott, it's been great talking with you tonight and learning all about the Tales of Primworth. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
The new book, written by Deborah McVay-Williams, is the story of one woman's journey to find peace and healing through faith. It's titled One Thing at a Time, Moment by Moment to a Lifetime of Peace. Debbie is right here with me now, and we're going to talk all about it. Debbie, welcome to the show. I appreciate you joining me tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.
Debbie, can you tell me all about One Thing at a Time? What readers are going to find here?
Sure. As you said, it's about a woman's journey, and it starts out pretty much of her whole life story, from childhood, the way she was raised, through her early adult life. She ends up having a devastating illness, and everything kind of falls apart in her life. But she realizes through that entire journey that when you just listen and you trust and you ask for prayer and you get it and have great health care and those kind of things, you can come out on the other side. But then the rest of it is about, then what do you do? What do you do with your life? How do you find hope? How do you make better choices? And then the overall message is everybody has a great story to tell, whether they think their life has been good or bad or everything in between. Your story is definitely worth telling, and there's someone out there that needs to hear it.
Did you have women primarily in mind when you were writing this?
Yes, but it's interesting. I originally actually published this book in 2020, and it was actually based on a very serious illness of my own that I had had back in 2013. And for a long time, I had thought, I should write this. I really should tell this story. I kept feeling kind of nudges that this is important. People need it. And then when the pandemic came along, it's like, people really need some hope. And so that kind of pushed me to finish it. And I self-published it, but I kept still getting kind of this nudge, but it needs to go further. It needs to go to other places. And I've sent it out to all kinds of people, celebrities, people I know. I've had people email and tell me that, my book club at church did this. I've had some men tell me how great it was and how inspiring they felt it was. One of my good clients had said, I sat in a coffee shop and read this and I felt like you were just talking to me across the table. And so that, that's really inspiring. And I thought, okay, I really want more people to know this story and the messages from it. So I started seeking out, trying to find out, who could be a book agent? This is obviously not my area of expertise. So I just started researching websites and things and found Covenant Book Publishing, and they're based in the United States, which is great for me. And they've been wonderful to work with. And they actually had a review committee that has to accept your manuscript, which was kind of a nail biter, are they going to?
Oh, I bet.
And they did. They were right on board and said, we love this. We want to tell this story. So
well, once you handed it off to Covenant, you started working with them to publish it. What did you find the most challenging part about that publishing end?
I think the whole publishing process, it's very time consuming, and I own my own business. I have an event planning business that I've had for years and primarily working with nonprofits. So running that business and trying to write, I tell people, now I know why people are full-time authors because it's time consuming, but it's worth it. I always feel like you have to put the time and the effort in if you really want to put a good product out there. And Covenant has been wonderful. They walk you through, they answer every question, they tell you where they're at in the process. And so I would say timing. Time is you have to really get back with them quickly and get them what they need so they can help you look good too.
And after all that time, all that work that you put into this, you're finally holding your first copy and looking at it. What was that like, Debbie?
It's really surreal. It comes and it's in this container and you open it up and you're just standing there and it's like, look at my name. It's in print on the front of this book. And the second thought I had, and I always have, is who cares? What difference does it make what you have to say? Does anybody really care? But then people start reading it and they start telling you wow, I really needed that. And just so many amazing comments.
I think this book is going to bless a lot of readers. Again, the title is One Thing at a Time, Moment by Moment to a Lifetime of Peace. It's written by Deborah McVay-Williams, published by Covenant Books, really available everywhere like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Debbie, it's been really wonderful talking with you tonight and learning all about this. Thanks again.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and hopefully people will find it as inspiring as I hoped when I wrote it.
I'm looking at a book right now. It's a story about a young shepherd boy who's called by angels to find Jesus on the first Christmas. The name of the book is Josiah and the Lost Sheep. It's written by Linda DeTurk, and Linda is right here with me now. We get to talk about this book. Linda, welcome. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Linda, I'm interested to learn all about Josiah and the lost sheep. So can you tell me what readers are going to find here?
Yes, it's the story of a little shepherd boy that the angels appear to him and tell them about the baby in the manger. So he's there on the first Christmas Eve, and then he never sees that baby again. He wonders all his life what happened to that baby. He grows up, he's a shepherd, he's experienced losing sheep, and he knows what that's about. And then as an adult, he hears Jesus tell the story of the lost sheep, and he can really relate to that. And it tells him how much God loves his people. And it just makes him suspicious, like, could this be the one? Could this be the baby? And he finds out it is the baby born in the manger, and he knows that Jesus is the Savior sent by God.
Linda, what sorts of readers did you have in mind for this?
I'm saying about 3 to 8-year-olds. I think children, probably 3 through 6, are going to love the bright, beautiful pictures that Bladen Cordell drew. And by the time they're 7 or 8, children would probably be able to read it to themselves. But I see a lot of parent and child interaction with the younger children.
And you mentioned the illustrations. That's something that's so important in books like this. And Bladen did an awesome job. What was that relationship like?
He happens to be my son-in-law who has gone to art school. So it was fun to have him do it. It's a joint project.
So, Linda, how did this all come about? How did the idea for this come to you?
I don't know. I've had this idea for years that didn't the shepherds wonder what happened to that baby? So it just kind of gradually, it's been rolling around in my mind for years, and little by little, the story came together. I'd go to my computer and write a few sentences, and then maybe a week or two later, I'd get another idea, and it just all came together.
So is this your first time at this kind of thing, or do you have some experience in it?
No, it's my first time to publish a book, so it's pretty exciting.
Wow, congratulations. So from beginning to end, from when you started, clear up through when it was published, was this a long journey that you were on?
Yes, it was, because it took me a while to write it. And then to tell you the truth, it took Bladen a couple of years to illustrate it because he was working full time and he would just do a picture here and there. And I just had to be patient. And I think the results are awesome.
Yeah, once you started working with Newman Springs and you did that publishing process, was there anything particularly challenging that you found about that end?
Oh, probably the waiting, because, you'd just like to have it done, next week, and it didn't go quite that fast. But I was pleased that they thought my writing was okay. They didn't have to make a lot of changes, and it was more just logistics on, how to set up the pages and that type of thing.
So when that day came for you and you were holding the first copy, finally, Linda, what was that like?
Oh, my gosh. Excitement, amazement, accomplishment, pride. It was just, it's so beautiful, and I just couldn't be more proud of it.
And now you are officially a published author. When you think about all that, Linda, what's the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
I just hope that it spreads, it is a fictitious story, but I hope it gets people to thinking about Jesus. Parent and child can have conversations about Jesus and maybe lead them to want to know more about him. It's definitely a Christian book, and that's the perspective I'm coming from.
So looking ahead, what are the chances that we might see some more books from you?
Well, I kind of have another one in mind for a children's book. There really aren't all that many children mentioned in the Bible, particularly the New Testament. So I kind of have this idea of bringing more stories to life, just imagining what it would have been like. For quite a few years now, I've done a daily adult devotional that I call Tea and Jesus, and I publish it online. But my dream is to get that published, and that would be for an adult audience.
Again, the title is Josiah and the Lost Sheep. It's written by Linda DeTurk and published by Newman Springs Publishing. So find it really everywhere. Places like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes and also traditional brick and mortar stores. Linda, it's been wonderful talking with you tonight. Thank you so much for telling me all about Josiah and the Lost Sheep and everything you got going on. It was great talking tonight.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you talking to me.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. We hope to see you back here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.